All right, I am live. I'm here just going to do a quickie today on April Fool's Day. I just posted this on Twitter, but it's kind of hard to see it on Twitter, especially if you're on a cell phone. So, and it's very complicated to zoom in on it to read the text. So I thought I'd do a little video just explaining my joke. It is a joke, but it's also true. It is true. I'll explain. So it says, I am InfiniTrans trademark. So I just made this up. It came to me this morning. I didn't actually realize till just now that it's April Fool's Day, but it came to me this morning. And so the subtitle here is Trans Powers and the Healing Move Toward Trans to the Power of Infinity. Okay, and I sincerely believe that this is the way we should go. We're on the slippery slope now to sanity. We're on the slippery slope to sanity. Okay, and my thesis is that we have different powers of trans. Trans to the power of 0, trans to the power of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to infinity. Okay, it's asymptotic. It approaches infinity. We'll never actually get there, but for all intents and purposes, you know, we probably only need a few more iterations past 3 in all reality to resemble sanity again. So, I mean, David Menzies, who I've got here, he's pretty much arrived at, he's already sane. So, and this guy probably is too. I don't know. We don't know the full story about him. So the basic idea is the T0, I used Kelly J. Keen Minshall as my example. I've interviewed her. She goes by Posey Parker. She likes the definition of woman, adult, female, human, and so do I. So she's sane. She's a woman. But in my system of trans powers, she's classified as trans to the power of 0, otherwise known as non-trans, zero trans, or zitch. That should be zilch. Made a spelling mistake. Maybe zitch is good because people think she's a B word that rhymes with zitch. Some people in certain communities probably think she's that. So maybe zitch is a happy accident. I don't know. Anyway, it was supposed to be zilch. I put a little trademark there for that one too. And this category is also known as woman, a woman. Yay, exciting, how radical. And then as we progress here, we start with the T1s. So it's sort of like a quantum leap from T0 to T1. To the power of 0 of anything just gives you identity, okay? It gives you that number 100%. It's like solid, it is what it is. It's the identity. Anything to the power of 0 is 1. You know, so we have integrity. So I put a little ... on the vertical just to show there's sort of a break between these two. So the T1 is what we call trans to the power of 1. What I call trans to the power of 1. Hopefully this will catch on. Caitlyn Jenner. OG trans, old school. Dino. And paleo trans, trademark, because this is so outdated. This is like so passé. It's embarrassing to look back on these first early stages of the trans power movement. Okay, and another way of naming these people is a man pretending to be a woman. Okay, so Bruce Jenner is pretending to be Caitlyn, a woman named Caitlyn. That's the first level of power in the trans. T2, or trans to the power of 2, is also known as metatrans because it's trans of the trans. It's double trans. I call it deuce. And there's some controversy over whether this person that goes by Kayla Lemieux is trolling or not. I'm just assuming that he's trolling for the sake of argument, for the sake it just fits my narrative better. But there are other trolls out there, so I mean I could have picked one, but this is a well-known one. And the common parlance of those of us who have common sense, the way of labeling these people is a man pretending to be a man pretending to be a woman. So it's a trans, double trans, a meta trans. It's someone who identifies as someone who identifies as someone who identifies as a woman. So we move along here to my wife's favorite journalist, David Menzies from Rebel News. Up here in Canada, it's pretty popular among the freedom fighters. And so he's trans to the power of 3, otherwise known as thrice trans, or the Menzie. You're a Menzie? Otherwise known as a man pretending to be a man, pretending to be a man, pretending to be a woman. I think you get the idea. So ... and we go finally to examine T infinity, trans to the power of infinity. And I put my friend Pastor Artur Pawlowski on here because I was trying to think, who's a manly man? Right? Who's a manly man, a Christian man? And Posey Parker's not Christian, but she's a womanly woman and beautiful woman. And we don't agree about everything, but I don't agree with Pastor Artur Pawlowski about everything either. I've had them both on the show. That's why I highlighted them. I'd love to have David Menzies on my show. I'd love to have any of these people on my show, frankly. But if you know me, you know I'm desperate to get anyone on. I'll talk to anyone. I love people. I love meeting different people. But anyway, he's what we call the ultra-trans, the InfiniTrans, also known as non-trans, zero-trans, or zilch. Okay? Also known as a man. And the reason that it repeats the non-trans, zero-trans, and the zilch that we had over here is because you have that identity. You have that identity. You have integrity. You are what you are, and you're not pretending to be anything, right? And we could flip it around. I said, note well that the above example illustrates so-called male to female trans powers. The extremes are interchangeable for the inverse example of female to male, so-called. So here we have Pastor Artur Pawlowski taking pride of place as the T0, T to the power of 0 example. He's just, otherwise known as a man. I hope M doesn't mind flashing on the screen there. This has nothing to do with M. Nothing to do with M. It's just that this image is in among my my images for my guests that I want to make images for my guests for their thumbnails. So nothing to do with M. This has nothing to do with M. She does not endorse this joke. She has nothing. She doesn't know anything about it. It's just like, okay. So I mean, if you want, I could go through some more of these. Okay, there's M. There's my friend Daniel. And again, and there's my other little young friend. There's Brian, and there's my Torontonian friend. So anyway, those people are not associated with this. They do not condone this joke. It's too edgy for them, probably. Anyway, so I did the same thing with women pretending to be men. I've got trans to the power of 1, 2, 3. And here the examples I used were Chaz Bono, who I think is the daughter of Sonny and Cher or something like that. She looks very convincing as a man. Wow, very convincing on this part, in this particular region here. Probably other regions doesn't look so convincing, but anyway. And on the microscopic scale, not so convincing. Okay. Pelvic arch, not so convincing. Anyway, moving on. We have this Del Herbert Jane, who I think is non-binary, but doesn't identify as trans. So that's why I used her as my woman pretending to be a woman pretending to be a man, because she played the role of a trans man. Okay. And then we have Gottmik, the drag queen, so-called drag queen that I love to hate. I don't hate her, obviously. I just hate the fact this woman rubbed me the wrong way. I was watching Drag Queen, with Anna up until recent times, because she's kind of annoyed, as we all should be, this whole LGBTQ plus thing and the drag queens is touching the innocent children, and it's obviously demonic. And so she's decided we're not going to watch any more Drag Queen. It's been a couple of years now. We haven't watched, well, maybe a year. We haven't watched it. We used to watch it all the time. Just because I love people. I have my favorite. I pick my favorite guys. And then suddenly they have a girl on RuPaul's Drag Race. I thought that was strange. But you know, I do love these people. I do love them. I feel sorry for them. They're like marginalized people and freaks and weirdos like myself, and you know, they're sweet and lovable. I mean, for the most part, I have my favorites, and I could still list my all-time favorite drag queens, but I won't bother to do that. But you know, they're sick perverts like anyone else. We're all on the spectrum, okay? And whatever. But you know, because the mask is dropping, Satan's mask, his cute little mask is slipping off, and we're getting to see just how hateful and ugly Satan and his minions are. My wife decided, no, I can't stomach this anymore. We can't watch the drag race. So no skin off my nose, because you know, there are plenty of reality shows with plenty of lovable, quirky, marginalized human beings that I can pick my favorites. That's why I watch reality TV, so I can pick my favorites. Right now I'm watching The Ultimate Fighter. There are 30 seasons of The Ultimate Fighter, and I love it. I recognize a lot of the guys because I used to watch a lot of UFC, and so I recognize a lot of the guys. I'm cheering for certain guys. Some of them rub me the wrong way. Some of them dress up as women and dance around the house in their underwear and stuff like that, which is not what I'm looking for. But just to say, even on that show, we've got antics, we've got crazy perverted antics. I think it was just being funny and trying to make the other guys uncomfortable to do any submission moves on them in the ring. Anyway, so my point is, I'm watching that show now. I really love it, because you get to know the people, and you know, on a superficial level, obviously, it's just what the camera shows and the editing and stuff like that. But I really do love it, and so I'm enjoying going back and watching all 30 seasons of The Ultimate Fighter. If you haven't seen it and you like fighting, you should definitely check it out. So anyway, Gottmik, she's okay. She annoyed me, and I thought it was stupid having a woman on a show about drag queens. But anyway, whatever. And then we come full circle to a woman, a real woman, who is trans to the power of infinity. Now, I'd like to have Kelly J back on to see what she thinks of this silly joke of mine. The thesis, I think, is very, very sound. My thesis, which is that the imitation of a woman is not even close to a woman. So the imitation of a woman is going to be less close to a woman, and therefore more close to a man. And the imitation of the imitation will be even closer to a man. And so the imitation of the imitation an infinite number of times, you're just left with a man, and there's not even any hint of an attempt to imitate the opposite sex. Same thing with these so-called trans men who are pretending to be men. They're women pretending to be men. The women who are pretending to be men can look very realistic. The ones who are pretending to be trans men can look less realistic. Now, this example I chose of Del Herbert Jane, you know, to me it looks just like a sort of chubby Butch Dyke, but it's still, you know, could possibly pass as a man. Same thing with Gottmik there. I think Gottmik looks kind of like a Butch, actually looks like a young, who's that singer? Katie Lang. Looks like a young Katie Lang. And, you know, I like the butch look on certain women. I think it's a cool look. But this woman can fool me, Chaz Bono. I said guy because it looks like a guy. It looks like a guy. But, yeah, you can be fooled. I don't think Caitlyn Jenner's going to fool anyone. I don't think Kayla Lemieux is going to fool anyone. And David Menzies, if he fools you at the bar, you've had too much to drink, okay? So when the beer goggles come off, when you're doing the walk of shame in the morning after, you know, slinking out of David Menzies' bedroom, you know, you get what you deserve. You should stop drinking. You really should cut back on that. So I don't have anything else to say. Happy April Fool's Day. No offense to any of my trans friends, brothers and sisters. You know, let me see. Can I show what I said at the bottom? I said, don't be mediocre, live your best life, go full circle. I love interviewing trans of every power, so please consider being my guest. And that's true. I've had some people who identify as trans on the show. I've had at least 3. And I love these people, and I love the people who go all the way. The InfiniTrans trademark, copyright David Ross, CVS podcast. The InfiniTrans, I love them too. So we're all on the spectrum. Let's go for it. Let's all race to the end of the rainbow. Find the end of the rainbow, the trans rainbow. At the end is literally a pot of gold where you have your identity. Your trans infinity can become trans to the power of 0, and you can have identity, integrity. You can be what God made you to be. You can be yourself. You can love yourself as you are, warts and all. I don't like my, everything about my appearance, my body, and my voice, my whatever. It's like, it is what it is. Loving yourself doesn't mean that you're a Greek god or goddess. Loving yourself means that you recognize that your creator is all good and that everything he created is good, and that every evil, even defects in beauty, every evil is the result of sin, actual sin, and of course original sin. That's what it means to love yourself. To love yourself, as St. Augustine said, is to commend yourself to God, who is all good and deserving of all our love. And so this is what St. Augustine calls intelligent self-love, wanting for yourself what you want for your neighbor, which is, you commend your neighbor to God and you commend yourself to God. That's intelligent self-love. So that's it. I'll leave it there. Short one today. And my guest, Pine Sap, if you're listening to this, reschedule. We were supposed to go on at 3. I had a feeling you were going to forget because you booked it a while ago. But rebook it. I'm excited to talk to you, brother, and not a problem that you forgot. I was sort of expecting that because you booked it a long time ago. But book it again. We'll come back on. Tomorrow I have an interview with a really interesting guest at 8 p.m., I believe. Enoch, if you haven't heard his Catholic rap music, you gotta go listen to a playlist on YouTube or buy his music. Check it out. If you like it, buy it. And he seems like a really cool guy. And, I think he identifies as a traditional Catholic, but a lot of people are latching onto that prefix. I never will. I refuse. I'd rather die than put a prefix on my Catholicism. But a lot of people do just because they want to distinguish themselves from the more progressive types that seem to dominate. I don't know who's dominating in the church today. But so look forward to Enoch tomorrow. I forget what his real name is. I'll probably get his permission to use it. And then Monday, Robert Spencer, not to be confused with Richard Spencer, who's very controversial, but Robert Spencer was controversial, I guess, in his own right. He's controversial because of his stance, his outspokenness against Islam. And I know a few of my listeners have strong views about Islam. I love the Muslims. I think as a Catholic, we have to love everybody, including our enemies. But I do love Islam and not Islam, but I do love Muslims. I love their faith and their uprightness, and from my experience, from what little experience I have, and I do love them. But it's a false religion. I mean, just like everyone who belongs to a religion will point to the other religions, and they will have to admit that from their point of view, all of the other ones are wrong. You can see it on a spectrum like I do. I see non-monotheism, and then I see monotheism, and I see Christianity, I see Catholicism on a spectrum. And I'm sure the other people in other worldviews can do that. I don't know if they necessarily have to have that spectrum sliding scale like I have, and that we have in the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church actually teaches that in the Catechism and in the 16 Documents of Vatican II. It's not said explicitly like that, but it just talks about the means of salvation, the fullness being in the Catholic Church, and the Church of Christ subsisting in the Catholic Church. That's, if you read between the lines, when they talk about the means of salvation that are found outside of her visible boundaries, the Church's visible boundaries, it's really talking about a hierarchy. And the same thing in the Catechism when it talks about Judaism, it talks about Islam, it talks about monotheism generally, it talks about the different worldviews from there, right down to agnosticism and finally atheism. And so it's all on a spectrum. So anyway, some exciting guests coming up, and we will talk very soon. Take good care. Remember to pray for me and mine. every day if you would, please. I'd appreciate that. And you and yours are in my prayers. Take good care. I love you. God bless.